So first, we're going to hear from Travis Allen. Travis is the founder and CEO of ProSolve. He's also the co-president of the Human Intelligence Movement. And Travis is passionate about advocating for human potential in an AI world and really thinking about what our school system needs to do to be transformed to support students in an AI era. I am really excited to introduce Travis, both as a colleague, a mentor, and a friend.
My name is Travis. I have two roles. I am the founder and CEO of ProSolve, a curriculum company focused on building human skills in education. But I'm also serving as the co-president with Michelle for this human intelligence movement. And today I want to talk about what it means to build human intelligence for an AI world and what that looks like, feels like. And what I want you to do is I want you to go to your chat, the chat for the room right now. And I want you to take, 10 seconds to basically answer this simple question. I want you to be brutally honest. Tell us, why do we go to school? What's the point? Why do we spend billions of dollars bringing people together to have come together and do this thing we call school? So take just 20 seconds, post your answer in the chat. To learn to think, grow, to help us live in this world, socialization, social relationships, social engagement, to learn how to make friends, to prepare us for life, living, socialization, building better communities. Only seconds is a short time. Help us find our place in the world. So lots of reasons on why we go to school, right? It's the law, we have to, we don't have a choice, it's for those social skills. We saw during COVID just how important school played a role, not necessarily in the academic learning, but just the social experience that people had in that moment. So for this kickoff of this movement and this conversation, I want us to go on a journey through time. I want us to think about what did it mean to be career ready throughout the ages. And I want to talk about the past, the present, and the future. So when I think about the past, I think of, for most of human history, what did the workforce need? And as we look at that, for most of human history, we were an agricultural industry. Almost everybody, all the occupations almost, were some sort of thing related to food. Things like 85% of global workforce was in agriculture. Things like blacksmiths, going to war, hunting, gathering, all those things. That was the workforce. And with that, we built an education system that was personalized apprenticeships and experiential, right? You learn by going into the blacksmith shop and learning by doing. It was very hands-on, and that apprenticeship was huge. Now, it had lots of limitations. It was not scalable, and you had a lot of wealth gap, and you had people who were born into it and those that were not, right? But all of this, for most of human history, I would argue, the thing you needed to survive in the workforce was physical labor. The currency was trading your physical energy for some sort of living wage or food. Then something happened, and we created machines to do this for us. Right? The industrial age revolution happened. And what happened is these machines devalued physical labor in that workforce, ushering us into what I would call the present that we live in today, which began with the industrial age in 1760. And so this was a crucial and painful transitionary time in history as we went from physical labor to something new that the workforce needed. If you look at the occupations that have existed since 1760s, 1 in 3 jobs were manufacturing jobs, and less than 2% of people remained in agriculture or farming. And so the workplace shifted dramatically, and we needed a new education system to meet the demands of that workforce. So we mirrored the industrial age, and we created an education system that was focused on building consistent humans who were literate and obedient, could follow a process, could follow the rules, could read, could do things like this. And it worked tremendously well for a long time. We were able to build up our students and prepare them for that industrial age workforce. And I would argue that the thing you needed to survive in the present workforce is knowledge. Right? We have a saying, knowledge is power. And so in this knowledge era, right, that was the goal. If you just get a 4-year college degree, we're guaranteed success in the workforce. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite feel like that anymore. Because just like we created machines to do the physical labor for us, we've now created machines to do the knowledge for us. And I believe at our core, this is why it's such a painful time to be in education or to be in the workforce right now. It's also an exciting time because we have created these machines that, just like the industrial age, are doing that for us. Specifically, the internet and artificial intelligence as kind of a catalyst for what we're experiencing. And I want to just play a quick video for you that shows ChatGPT's latest announcement of some of their features that they deployed about a week ago, just to get us thinking about what's possible with AI and where it's going.
GPT. Hey, ChatGPT.
Hello there. How's it going?
It's going really well. Today, I'd really like your help solving a math problem.
I'm all ears. What math problem can I help you tackle today?
So I'm going to write down a linear equation on a sheet of paper and I'll show you. And then I'd love your help working me through it. But importantly, don't tell me the solution. Just help give me hints along the way.
Got it. Okay, I see it.
Hey, no, I didn't show you yet. Just give me help along the way. 1 second.
Whoops. I got too excited. I'm ready when you are.
So, ChatGPT, what equation did I write down there?
I see it now. You wrote down 3x plus 1 equals 4.
Yep, exactly. So what's the first step I should take to try to solve this?
The first step is to get all the terms with x on one side and the constants on the other side. So what do you think we should do with that plus 1?
Okay. I'll go ahead and stop it there.
Travis, it looks like people weren't seeing the video. I got a couple of comments.
Okay, I'm going to try to...
It's okay. I will move my presentation here.
Okay, I'm going to try to subtract 1 from both sides, and then I'll see what I get.
In front of my screen.
Great idea.
There we go. Okay, if you didn't see the video, that's fine. It showed some of the new features of ChatGPT. A lot of you guys have seen this kind of stuff that's happening right now, but here's what I want us to think about when it comes to the technology where it's at today. Just like when the internet came out, right? What we mostly did is we substituted what we are already doing, but it's done a little bit more efficiently, right? So when the internet came out, it was like, oh, instead of mailing in a letter,
subtract 1 from both sides, and then I'll see what I get.
Video audio.
Great idea. Perfect. Now, what do you get when you subtract 1 from both sides?
Here we go. So when you think about what I was saying was, when we first started, we were snail mailing things, and now we have Gmail, and it replaced it. But it took several years for us to evolve beyond that, right? The whole point of technology is to create things that were otherwise impossible prior to that technology existing. So we went from email to then instant chat message to then FaceTime to now the metaverse. So what are we going to see evolve with artificial intelligence? Right now, it's doing a lot of substituting. But when our kids go to the workforce 10 years from now, what is that technology going to be doing and capable of? And above all else, will we be replaced by teachers? Will teachers be replaced by teachers? I want you guys to answer this question in the chat while I continue to go. Do you think that where we're going, this will replace the purpose of our teachers? And when we think about this, this is something that a lot of jobs and a lot of groups are contemplating and questioning right now. And really, it comes down to, well, what is a teacher doing, right? There are some teachers that might be replaced by AI if all we're doing is knowledge dissemination, right? The era of knowledge teaching, I would say, is being replaced. What the McKinsey Global Institute reported is that 85 million jobs will be displaced across the globe just by 2027 alone because of technology. Now, on the flip side, though, we're seeing 97 million new jobs coming to existence. Is it still sharing my screen? Okay, it switched on me, but as long as keep sharing. So what we're saying is, well, no, you might not be replaced by AI, but most likely you will be replaced by a teacher who uses AI. And so that's what we have to think about as we prepare students for where they're going and the workforce that they're walking into. So when we think about the future, what will the jobs look like, and what do we need to build to prepare our students for now a digital age workforce? And what we're seeing is, I want to ask this question to the chat actually. If whatever role you play, whether you are a teacher, administrator, or you work for a company, answer the question, why won't you be replaced by AI? What is so unique about what you're bringing to the table that you are going to be relevant even as this AI technology expands and grows? So feel free to post your message in the chat room here. I will share one of my beliefs about artificial intelligence here. AI has an answer to everything. If you ask it anything, it has an answer, right? So the question, the thing that we have to ask ourselves is, what is the point of me being on this call with you right now? What's the point of me speaking? Well, I might not have all the answers. In fact, I might have none of the answers. But I think what's so crucial is, what are the questions that we're going to go ask? How can we inspire each other? How can we inspire our students to want to ask the questions that need to be asked? I think that is what makes me uniquely human. That is why AI will not replace me as long as I continue to have that be my focus. Now, based on some of the things that you guys have posted in chat here, when we think about the workforce and the occupations of the future, the World Economic Forum just posted the top 10 skills on the rise right now. And it shows that 75% of employers are prioritizing hiring for human skills right now. Things like creative thinking, analytical thinking, right? Having kids think for themselves, be creative, be adaptable, have their resilience, all these things, being curious about the world around them are so key to their success as they go forward. Are we building educational institutions that are fostering these skills every single day that our students walk into that classroom? And I'd love to have a debate in this room with you all today as we think about this. So going back to this timeline, if we went from physical labor being our form of currency to now knowledge, and now the future, I would argue, is human skills. What makes us us? What makes us uniquely human? We have to stop training our kids to compete against artificial intelligence. That is a losing battle. AI will always be better than me at a 5-paragraph essay. And so as we think about this, everything at our foundation we know about schools and the way we learn to some degree has to change because we are no longer living in the knowledge era. There are many challenges that face us there. Like I said, I want to have a debate in this room. If we can agree for a moment that human skills are the most important skills to be successful, then our generations of kids today getting better and worse at their ability to, with human skills, think critically, problem solving, and so on. I want you to post in the chat, tell me, are they getting better or worse, and why? Why are they getting better or worse? I'll give you guys a moment to do this. You can also use the react thumbs up, thumbs down button probably, just to show where you stand on it. We're getting worse. Why are we getting worse? Tell me why, to make a case one way or the other. Worse because they have fewer interactions with other humans, depending on context, in personal or virtual. I agree. I've definitely seen a divide there. They're too reliant on tech. Their social skills, screen isolation. They're getting worse. Private schools are doing okay, though. Worse, teachers are not judging on how well their students can critically think. They don't no idea how to engage or manage. COVID really impacted them on doing so. fewer social skills. So again, I'm sensing a trend here, right? That overall there are elements where kids are getting better, but we are seeing a decline. And what's interesting is we're now saying that this skill is more important than ever, but we're also seeing it on the decline as a society. I think that is a major red flag, one that we need to sound the alarm and be discussing. I'm going to make the case today that I also think human skills are declining. Right here is the average IQ of Americans. It's called the Flynn effect. We are constantly getting smarter as a species. That's great news. For 40 years, we're getting smarter. But when you compare that to the creative quotient test, you can see that we were on the incline, then something happened in the 90s and we started going on the decline. Well, what happened in the 90s? The internet. The internet was invented to solve our problems for us, and it did a phenomenal job at the expense of our kids thinking critically, solving problems, and being independent and having those social skills, right? So this was a big part of what we felt. And at the core of it, it has created challenges that both the students themselves and the schools face in their journey to be ready for this new digital era workforce. What I want to share with you today is some of my biggest observations. We can't fix the problem if we don't first identify what those problems are and where they come from. So let's talk about our students and how our students are doing in education right now. I'm going to start with some stats here. Right now, we got 9%. In the last 4 years, we've seen a 9% unenrollment into the educational institutions altogether, right? That is staggering. Over the last 20 years, it's been less than like 1% up until these last 4 years. We see a doubling of truancy. This was a new study that just came out that said 60% of employers admitted to firing a recently hired Gen Z because they did not have the human skills necessary to work in that job. That is alarming. That is compared to 20 to 30% with the millennial generation entering the workforce. 53% of students feel school is not relevant. We see an increase in anxiety and depression right now. 3 core reasons that I want to share with you on why I think some of these things exist and are happening. First and foremost, the lack of self-efficacy. We are seeing a decline in grit, resilience, independent problem solving, and the self-efficacy, the belief that I matter. And I think this goes beyond just education. For the last 20 years, we have shifted to a helicopter parenting and teaching strategies. We do everything for our kids, right? This cartoon sums it up. The parents are yelling at the child back in 1969, explain these bad grades. Not help you to do that, besides the point. Now the parents are yelling at the teacher, explain these bad grades. There has been a cultural shift in what our role is as parents and how we show up for our kids. We do everything for them, right? We chauffeur them around, we schedule them all up and down to do things. And we really just don't let them sit in boredom sometimes, do what it takes to build that creativity and that curiosity. I have a fear. I don't think there's a name for this phobia, but it's parents with too much free time. Because that is where it's at, right? When we start to do everything for our kids, I think it comes at a cost to them. And I got to bring Morpheus into this. What if I told you parents are not supposed to protect their children from the world, but to prepare them for it? We've got to shift our thinking here. And the example I want to give you is, there are 3 levels to helicopter parenting when I think about it, right? I'm going to use the example of tying my shoes. I found out that I tie my shoes the wrong way. I do the 2-bunny method system. It comes undone all the time, super inefficient. And 3 ways to tie your shoes, right? The worst case of helicopter parenting looks like this. Velcro shoes till they're 18 years old. I'm just going to remove the problem from the equation and all obstacles from their way, right? And then we go to the second tier, which we find, I think a lot of ours who are parents find ourselves being, which is I'm going to teach my kids what I know. I'm going to teach them how I tie my shoes. And I think where we want to go is a deeper level. It looks like this. You go to a 5-year-old and a 5-year-old has their shoes untied and you say, wow, it's going to hurt when you fall. You might want to do something about that. And a 5-year-old can start a camera chat with ChatGPT and say, hey, can you watch me and teach me how to tie my shoes and tell me how I'm doing? What's the value of them doing that? Was it that they learned how to tie their shoes? I would argue no. The real value of that was at the age of 5, I realized that I don't need an adult in the room to solve my problems. That, at its core, I think is what's so fundamental that we help and build with our students as they think about this. So we've got to build our self-efficacy with our students if we're going to overcome this. Number 2, digital citizenship. We have seen the ramifications, both good and bad, that technology without digital citizenship has on the mental load of our students. And, a lot of us assume that students know how to use technology. And I would argue, well, they know how to use it for video games and social media, but not always as a productive device. And the first thing I'll share with you is, thinking about Minecraft. I love Minecraft, right? I love playing it myself. What's interesting is that anytime, my little brother loves to play it as well. Every time my little brother got stuck in Minecraft, he immediately went to YouTube and solved that problem. He didn't even think about it. He just immediately went and solved it. That same day, he didn't know how to do math homework, right? He does what most kids do. He went to my parents. My parents didn't know how to solve it. And he gave up. He was like, oh, I guess I can't learn. I guess I can't do my homework today. Never thinking to go to YouTube or other resources to solve it. Wow. Why did he do that in his gaming world, but not in his educational world? Well, for him, it was deemed as cheating, right? It was seen as cheating. It wasn't even how his brain worked. And so I think what I've seen is this lack of skill in what I call find, filter, and apply. Can I find accurate information and then create something beautiful out of that information? That is something we need to train our kids on if we're going to move forward to the digital age. And on the flip side, I see another problem occur with social media. It is my belief that either you use the internet or the internet uses you. There are only 2 modes to engage with the internet. And what I mean by this is you're using the internet when you see a problem in your life. Oh, my sink is not working. You go to YouTube and you solve it and you fix your sink. That's you using the internet. That's fantastic. The internet uses you when it gives you information you did not seek out, information that you did not look for, the idea of social media scrolling. Now, why this is so potentially concerning, especially for our youth, is that it starts to shape how we perceive the world and how we think without realizing it, right? And our eyeballs are the product. Their goal is to get us to come back to the platform every single day and continue to scroll. That is what they're doing as a company. And so because of this, we start to think the rest of the world thinks like we think. And when we, meet a real human, right, it starts to feed us our beliefs that we like and not feed us alternative opinions. So when we meet a real human in the real world who has a different opinion than us, well, they're stupid. They're an idiot. And I know they're stupid because they're the only ones who has that opinion. It can be very harmful. So I think that we've got to teach our kids both the ability to find ways to solve their problems effectively and also encourage them to use it in constructive ways instead of being used by the internet. Third, the lack of engagement. We have seen a huge decline in students' engagement into school right now. And I want to share with you a story of a college professor of mine. This college professor, I loved him. He was great. There was no multiple choice tests. He took you on a journey of self-discovery. He asked you great questions. I loved this teacher. But I started asking my peers what they thought of this teacher, and I realized I was the only one who liked him. So I did some research on a very academic website called Rate My Professor. For those of you who don't know, this is a website that 99% of college students use to evaluate whether he is a good teacher or not. He had one of the lowest scores I've seen. And there are 3 criteria to this website: easiness, clarity, helpfulness. 3 words for easy. That is how we measure our teachers as a student perspective to be successful. There's also the chili pepper up here. Not sure if anyone knows what that means, but apparently it's your attractiveness. Your ability to be attractive also affects your ability to be a good teacher, apparently. But if that was not enough, here are the words in why my peers said he was a bad teacher. Not worth it, not what it seems. Well, I learned a lot about business myself, teamwork, etc. However, none of this learning took place inside the classroom. And my favorite one doesn't actually teach it all, but makes you use what you learned so far in school to do it yourself. If you were reading these quotes without the ratings, you would think these are positive reviews. And yet these are the reasons that our students don't like this teacher. So here's the reality we live in, right? We can sit here and tell our teachers, you got to innovate, you got to be different, you got to get uncomfortable. But then their students are going to revolt against them, right? Because that is not what they're perceiving as their why do we go to school. I don't blame students necessarily for this attitude. Anytime I grew up and I asked the question to adults, why do I have to go to school? I was always told the same answer. You go to school to get good grades, to get into a good college, to get a good job. That is why you go to school. And we wonder why our kids do exactly what we told them to do and seek the path of least resistance. So this, at our core, I think is one of the reasons that we have such a low engagement in the classroom. Now, looking at the institutions themselves, what holds us back at schools and how we operate and how we run schools? Well, let's talk about some of the data. Right now, as most of you on this call probably know, teachers are the number one burnout profession, which 44% of districts having some sort of vacancy right now. They're officially number one in this. The other thing that we're starting to see is the American people are shifting priorities. In the last 3 years, college, the need prioritization of college prep went from 10th priority to number 47th priority out of 57. Career readiness went from 27 to 6. There is a pendulum swinging right now. People are feeling it. 30% of Americans rated that they felt their schools were satisfactory in preparing us for that workforce. These are numbers that we have to figure out how to overcome. And I want to, again, unpack these numbers a little bit more. Let's talk about the first problem that I see in our educational institutions. The first is the curriculum design. The questions we ask have not changed all that much in a very long time. If I asked you who the 15th president of the United States was, I don't know if anyone knows. Without Googling it, feel free to post it in chat. But if I asked you this question 30 years ago, how would you have had to solve it, right? You had to go to a library, practice your oral communication skills, talk to a real human, and then go to the card catalog doohickey system to find an encyclopedia to find the answer to this simple question. How do we solve it today? We immediately go to Google, AI, wherever, and we get the answer. I would argue that 30 years ago, the value of this question was not that we remembered the 15th president was James Buchanan, by the way, but in fact, that we learned how to develop our human skills along the way in this question. So one of the things that I think we have to overcome is figuring out what does it mean to design learning and curriculum environments that focus on building human skills, not necessarily knowledge retention. The second problem that I think is often overlooked, when I think about the workforce, I think that when the industrial age happened, we built an education system that mirrored the workforce. I think we need to do the same thing again. We need to look to the workforce and say, what kind of humans do you need in the workforce? And one of the biggest challenges I've seen is the way that we manage our people in education across the board. Let me explain what I mean. In a traditional company, right? Especially if you go back 20 years ago, in a traditional company, typically the manager was the smartest person in the room. And because they're the smartest person in the room, what they do is they define what success is, and they figure out how to obtain success. And so what they're doing is they're holding their people accountable to following a process. Follow these, you may not know why you do it, follow these 10 steps and we'll get along just fine. That was the traditional way in which we managed employees. That has since changed dramatically. And what we see it is we've flipped, we've reversed everything. The employee is the smartest person in the room. Your job as a manager is to still define what success is. Here's how I know we're successful when we do X. I have no idea how to get to X. Good luck figuring it out, right? And getting out of the way of that employee. That is what it looks like to be in the corporate world today. And every single employee, manager or otherwise, has to then figure out, how do I creatively collaborate with my peers to come up with some genius way to approach the problem? This, at our core, is why I believe human skills are on the rise and the ability to follow a process is on the decline. When we think about this, the top is a transactional leadership. It is the idea that I'm trading my time for a paycheck. Whereas the flip reverse of that is transformative. It is transforming some sort of outcome and desire and creating something of value. And when we think about this in education, I think at our core, this is one of the biggest problems we have right now, is how, as administrators, how do we manage our teachers? Our teachers, our administrators, the smartest person in the room and dictating step-by-step process. Here are the 100 ways you teach your class today. Or have we flipped that? But then going even deeper, is the teacher the smartest person in the classroom? And they're dictating to the students, here's how we're going to learn, here's what we're going to learn, here's how we're going to approach the problem. We see this play out in those situations. And I think it's something that we have to start mirroring what the workforce looks like to see change in education. Got to bring Steve Jobs into this. It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. If teaching becomes a transactional job and not a transformative career, then I think teachers will be replaced by AI. We have to create a culture where teachers have freedom and autonomy and are empowered to do right by their students and have an innate passion and desire to do right by their students so they can approach solving the problem differently. The third challenge we face as institutions is what you measure is what gets funded. It's what gets prioritized at the end of the day. Right now, most of education is measured on standardized tests and attendance. This is something the workforce used to do as well. Manufacturing jobs. Did you clock in time and check all the boxes that I need you to check to follow the process? It worked for that workforce time. The workforce does not measure this anymore. We have remote work. We have all sorts of different metrics. Right now, we avoid measuring inputs. We focus on measuring outputs and outcomes. So we need to rethink and redefine what we measure if we're going to be successful and mirror that workforce to get different results. So, anyone feel overwhelmed with the problems ahead of us? We are faced with some of the biggest challenges we have ever faced in education as we have to transition to a new era in society. The flip side, the good news about these challenges is there's another way to look at it. I call it job security. Because if these problems were easy, AI would have solved them a long time ago and we would be out of a job. It is because it is difficult that we have to go forward and try to solve these things. And it's really important work that we're doing. So what's the solution? What do we do about it? How do we build this future education? I want to talk back to this question of why do we go to school and how do we succeed at whatever our destination in education is? Right now, I would argue that this has been our destination for over 200 years. We are set to prepare students for an industrial age where they are consistent, literate, and obedient. And the goal is grades and standardized. That is the objective of school today. And we created a model, a traditional model that was really good at this, right? Scantrons and desks and blackboards and pencils. And this worked for a really long time. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story, how I came into this space. I've been in education reform for over 15 years. And I started when I was 17 years old in Fayetteville, Georgia. I started taking notes on my smartphone in my history class as a senior, but the policy in my school was no cell phones allowed. And so my phone was confiscated, teacher took it up. I went home super frustrated, complained to my parents. My dad eventually said, shut up. If you don't like education, do something about it. Be the change that you want to see here. And so I spent 4 months building a YouTube video showing how one-to-one mobile learning would transform education. If you could just give every student a device, all of our problems will be solved. Education will be for the better. Steve Jobs found that video. He promoted it throughout education. They went viral around the world. And by complete accident, I fell into this world of education technology. And for the first 10 years of my career, I've been on every speaking platform that would let me get up there. And I would say that, I would preach that we've got to go one-to-one. That was the goal. You know what happened? Absolutely nothing. COVID hit. We did it. We got everyone a mobile device. Mission accomplished. All we actually did was create a more expensive way to do what we've always done before. The problem at its core is we focused on how we get somewhere, and we didn't focus on changing the goalpost, the target. And what's so interesting right now is I see history repeating itself right now in this moment. I see us now doing the same thing with AI. How can we put all these AI tools everywhere in the classroom? All of our initiatives are about, latest and greatest top 10 AI tools you now need for your classroom. And I get it. I've been there. When we did the one-to-one, that's what I focused on pushing over and over and over. My belief is that we will get the same result because we have not changed the end destination. That, at its core, is what we are here in this movement to talk about, think about, and obsess with every time we go into this educational world. We have to aspire for something else. We need to redefine the very purpose, the reason we go to school. We have to reimagine and redefine. This was made so relevant to me a couple months ago, and part of why Michelle and I got together and we were so adamant about starting the human intelligence movement is that I'll tell you a little bit about, what happened for me. I run ProSolve, and we build, game-based, play-based human skill curriculum and social emotional curriculum, things like that. And I was talking to a superintendent in California, and, he came up to me, he's like, you know what? We're going to put your product in all of our after-school and summer programs. And you know why we're going to do it? Because it's good for kids. It is what they actually need to grow as humans. And I joked back to him. I said, if it's good for kids, then, why don't we just put it in the school day so all your students can experience it? And he laughed. His response was, are you kidding me? There's no way I could put this in the school day. I knew right then and there's a reason that we have mediocrity in the products, the solutions, the thinking that comes to education. Because when we built what we built, we did not build it. There are three ways to build a product. Build something out of your own mind. That's where most entrepreneurs start. Build what your current customers want, or build what the untapped market wants. And most entrepreneurs like me, I started by building something I wish I had as a kid, something I really just wanted to see in the classroom. And it resonated with people. And as it grew, all my business advisors told me the same thing. All right, now that you're getting bigger, you got to take it serious. Go build to the market. Every company is told build to the market. Find out what the market wants, find out what they're funding, and build that. I was mortified by my journey of doing that because all it came down to was, how is your product going to improve standardized test scores and create butt and seats? At the end of the day, it boiled down to that essence. And it dawned on me, this is why we have mediocre solutions sometimes. So we've got to aim for something different. And when I talk about the aim, I mean, what if? Can you imagine if education prioritized, funded, and paid for the development of human skills every single time your kids walk into your classroom? We see this happening all over, by the way. Fortune of a Graduate is phenomenal at moving us forward in this direction. Micro-credentialing, badging, all these things that are mimicking the real world are happening right now. Part of the problem is that they're not being funded. Districts are putting their Fortune of Graduate together, but there's no funding to support that work. This is why the movement exists. This is why we are here today. The movement is obsessed with this idea of how do we do three important pieces of work to move us forward. First, how do we define human intelligence, human skills, and bring awareness for the need of them in our classes to prepare our students for that workforce? This is key, a key part of the work we want to do. Two, how do we advocate and lobby for policy change? At the end of the day, we have to change legislation to focus on funding the building of our human skills in our public institutions. And finally, how do we build a community of best practices? How do we build people like you who are coming together saying, here are some of the tried and true methodologies, not to build us in the knowledge era, but to build our human capacity and our ability to work with our students in this way. If you are here today, you are probably here because you have felt this way for a long time. There are many organizations out there that are doing phenomenal work that very much align with this work as well. I think where the human intelligence movement wants to be different, where it wants to focus on, is be laser focused on this thing. This movement won't need to exist when these three things happen successfully, right? We got a long way to go, and change does not happen with one company, one individual. It is time that we stop perpetuating the status quo. Right now, big institutions, big colleges, big organizations, they are the ones who are keeping us and putting us in that status quo because they benefit from the way the system works today. We have to create an army of students, parents, teachers, companies who demand something more, something different out of these educational institutions. And when we do that, we will start to see change in the system. So I'll leave you with this thought before I turn it back over to Michelle and continue this great conversation and panel with you all. As we go back to our lives, our districts, and we go back to thinking about where we're going, I see a lot of leaders rallying behind artificial intelligence. How do we get AI at the forefront of education? And I think the problem with that argument is that there will be people for and against that initiative, right? You'll have people against AI, people for it, and it's going to be divisive. To create true change, what if we rally behind the pursuit of human intelligence? What if we say, look, the end goal of our initiative is we want to build human skills in our school district every single day. You're going to use AI a ton along the way to generate and create that, but it's the pursuit of humans that is what matters most. That is a message that everyone can rally behind. And the great news about this is good teachers have been doing it for decades, way before the technology. Great teachers have been building their human skills, building relationships, and connecting with their students in meaningful ways. The only difference in the world today is that I believe it's now a requirement for us to do it in the classroom, not a nice to have. With that said, please continue to be a part of this movement. Bring your voice, bring your ideas, bring your thoughts, help push and challenge all of us to become better as we build this community of best practices. Thank you so much for your time.